Hey everyone! Welcome back to our English learning podcast. If you're new here, this podcast is all about learning English in a simple and fun way.
Yes. We try to make English learning feel like a friendly conversation instead of a boring lesson.
And today we're talking about something that many English learners find confusing.
Very confusing sometimes.
Imagine this. You see a word, you read every letter carefully, but when a native speaker says the word, one letter suddenly disappears.
It's like that letter just decided to stay quiet.
Exactly. In English we call these silent letters.
Silent letters are letters that appear in spelling but are not pronounced when we speak.
So basically the letter is there when you read the word, but you don't hear it when someone says it.
Right. And today we're focusing on one specific silent letter.
The letter B.
Sometimes the letter B behaves normally and makes its sound.
But sometimes, it just disappears from the pronunciation.
It's like the letter B came to the word but decided not to talk.
That sounds like the quiet friend in every group.
Exactly. Always present, but never speaking.
Today we're going to understand why this happens and when the B becomes silent.
And once you understand the pattern, you'll start noticing silent B words everywhere.
Let's take one quick example.
The word thumb.
Many learners try to pronounce the B at the end.
But in natural English, we simply say thumb.
The B is written, but it stays silent.
And today we're going to understand exactly why that happened.
So let's start with the rule behind silent B. Alright Ria, before we go deeper into practice and quizzes, I think many learners first want to understand something very simple.
That's a very good question. A lot of learners feel confused because they expect every letter in a word to make a sound. In many languages, that is exactly how reading works. If you see a letter, you pronounce it.
Why does English even have silent letters? Yes, that's what many people naturally expect when they start learning English.
But English developed in a very different way. The language has influences from many other languages, and over time the pronunciation changed while the spelling often stayed the same.
So the spelling stayed frozen, but the sound slowly changed.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest reasons silent letters exist today.
And today we're focusing on one particular silent letter, which is the letter B.
Right. Now the interesting thing about the letter B is that it normally has a very clear sound.
So usually it's a very noticeable sound.
Yes, but in some words the B stops making that sound.
Which means the letter is still written in the word, but when we speak we simply ignore it.
That's correct.
For many learners this feels strange at first, because when they read a word slowly they naturally try to pronounce every letter they see.
Exactly, and that's where the confusion begins. A learner might carefully read the spelling and include the B sound, but native speakers don't pronounce it.
So the learner's pronunciation suddenly sounds unnatural.
Yes, even though the learner is actually trying to be very careful.
That's kind of ironic.
It is. Sometimes being too careful with English spelling actually creates pronunciation mistakes.
So the key idea here is that spelling and pronunciation are not always perfectly connected in English.
Right. Once learners accept that idea, silent letters become much easier to understand.
Let's talk specifically about silent B now.
One of the most common situations where B becomes silent happens when it appears after the letter M, especially near the end of a word.
So the combination of the sounds around the letter affects whether we pronounce it or not.
Exactly. When we pronounce the letter M, our lips are already closed. Because of that, adding the B sound afterward doesn't really add much difference to the pronunciation.
That makes sense physically.
Yes. Both sounds involve closing the lips, so over time speakers naturally stopped pronouncing the B sound because it wasn't necessary.
So the sound gradually disappeared.
Right. But the spelling stayed exactly the same.
Which is why learners today still see the letter B even though it isn't pronounced.
Exactly.
That actually makes silent letters feel a little less mysterious.
Yes, there is often a practical reason behind them.
Can we show one quick example so listeners understand what we mean?
Sure. Take the word thumb.
Many learners look at the spelling and try to pronounce the B at the end.
But in natural English the B is silent, so we simply say thumb.
That's a perfect example of how the spelling includes the B but the pronunciation doesn't.
Exactly.
Another thing I notice is that silent letters sometimes make learners nervous when they read new words.
That's very common. When someone sees a new English word, they might think, what if there is a silent letter here?
So they start guessing.
Yes, and sometimes they overthink it.
But the good news is that silent letters usually follow patterns.
That's right. Once you learn those patterns, reading becomes much easier.
So instead of memorizing thousands of individual words, you start recognizing the patterns.
Exactly. That's a much smarter way to learn pronunciation.
Another interesting thing about silent letters is that native speakers don't really think about them.
That's true. Native speakers learn these pronunciations naturally while growing up, so they don't consciously notice the silent letters.
But for learners, they stand out immediately.
Yes, because learners are paying attention to the spelling.
That's why lessons like this are helpful.
Definitely. Once you understand why something happens in pronunciation, it becomes easier to remember.
So the main message here is that silent B is not random.
Right. It usually appears in specific situations related to spelling patterns and pronunciation history.
And once you start recognizing those patterns, silent B words become much easier to read.
Exactly. Instead of feeling confused, you'll start recognizing them instantly.
And after practicing a little, your pronunciation will sound much more natural.
That's the goal.
So now that we understand why the letter B sometimes becomes silent, we're ready to explore the patterns and practice them.
Yes, and in the next part we'll go deeper into how to recognize these patterns while reading.